If you haven't heard, Ethereum has been dominating over the past 3 months. With record ETF inflows, stablecoin legislation going live, Ethereum has even been massively outperforming the king, Bitcoin. And so in this video, we'll be covering the massive domination that's been happening by Ethereum for the past 3 months as it's been sucking liquidity out of the rest of the crypto market. Then the huge price prediction recently made by Tom Lee of Fundstrat. And then we'll finish with my latest investment into the Ethereum ecosystem to try to capitalize on this mega trend. Okay, so first up, let's take a look at what's been happening with Ethereum over the past 3 months as it's been sucking liquidity out of the rest of the altcoin market. Okay, so we are jumping into the coin market cap altcoin season index. And if we scroll down, we can see the top 100 coins and their performance over the past 3 months. So if we scroll down, we'll get our benchmark, which is the king, which is Bitcoin. And this has done about 15%. Then these are the ones that have underperformed Bitcoin a little bit. And then when it comes to liquidity being sucked out of the altcoins, that would be these, and then certainly these ones here. So these are the ones that have liquidity has left over the past 3 months and gone a lot of it into Bitcoin. But as you'll soon see in a second, a lot of this has gone to Ethereum, and the worst ones being down 50%. So the benchmark is 15%. As mentioned, these ones have performed a little bit less, but when things flip, these can flip Bitcoin pretty quick. However, these are the ones that have done pretty well. And for me, I'm mainly just a top 10 investor. So things like BNB jump out to me, nicely outperform Bitcoin. We've got HBAR. Now, interestingly, one of mine was ENS, which is Ethereum Name Service, and this market cap is only about 1 billion. And my idea was to buy this because if Ethereum does really, really well, this one should do multiples. However, although it has done very well and it's outperforming Bitcoin, just check and see where Ethereum is. Now, I check this quite a lot, and Ethereum's been rocking in this top 5 for quite some time, so 87%. So not only massively outperforming Bitcoin, but massively outperforming pretty much the altcoin market, which is very impressive. Now, as a quick snapshot, this is the Ethereum domination in DeFi. So you can see the vast majority of DeFi is still happening on Ethereum. Then Solana, Binance Smart Chain, Bitcoin Tron, and Base. Then we recently had this stablecoin legislation go live. And as we can see, the biggest beneficiary of the stablecoin legislation is going to be Ethereum as it dominates stablecoin. Tron is the next one. Then again, we have Solana, Binance, Hyperliquid Base, and everything else. So as you can see from a snapshot, Ethereum is dominating when it comes to use cases as well. And although there is quite a lot of crossover, they are still two different things. Now, if you didn't know, this is very, very interesting. This has to do with the developers. So monthly active developers. And of course, we want the ecosystem to have a thriving developer community. The more developers, the better. Well, did you know that Ethereum is the #1 ecosystem on every major continent? This is Asia, Europe, North America, Africa, and South America. And Ethereum is number one. We still have to give a shout out to Solana, as Solana is number 2. However, as you can clearly see from a high level overview, the reason Ethereum has been dominating over the past few months is because it's got solid fundamentals, use cases, developers, etc. Now, one of the big things for this cycle has been these corporate treasuries, and this is where companies are converting some of their cash on the balance sheet and holding digital assets. Obviously, this was pioneered by Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy, who is now the largest for Bitcoin. But overall, there's now over $100 billion in corporate treasuries for several different digital assets. So this is a mega trend for this cycle. We now have banks that are creating their own stable coins, but they are choosing to launch on Ethereum. We saw recently eToro, the stock trading platform, is going to be tokenizing its stocks, and they've chosen Ethereum. Coinbase also using Base based on Ethereum, and also Robinhood using Arbitrum, which is built on Ethereum as well. The BlackRock Ethereum ETF becomes the third fastest in history to reach 10 billion in assets, and the only thing that beat it was Bitcoin. So Bitcoin and Ethereum have outperformed every single ETF in history. So clearly a megatrend. And recently, BlackRock has filed to add Ethereum staking to its ETF. So playing devil's advocate, yes, Bitcoin did outperform Ethereum with their ETF. However, Ethereum never got a fair launch. One of the big things that differentiates Ethereum with Bitcoin is that you can get a yield from staking, which the old SEC never allowed. So as soon as this converts, this is clearly going to be very good for Ethereum. So yes, we all know that Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy has kick-started this corporate treasury, buying all the way back in 2020, and has been pretty much accumulating the whole way, amassing $25 billion in profit. So clearly enormously successful. Well, did you know there's now a whole number of companies that are doing the same for Ethereum? And recently, we had Tom Lee become the new chairman of BitMine, and they have now become the #1 holder for Ethereum with $3 billion worth. So the new chairman, Tom Lee, only became chairman in the past couple of weeks. So this is a brand new strategy aiming to be the MicroStrategy for Ethereum. And in fact, here is his price prediction for Ethereum.
Everyone's talking about price this week. You know, I think last I looked, ETH was up over 10%. What's your price target for ETH as we head into the second half of the year?
Our price objectives at Fundstrat, Sean Farrell is the head of digital assets research, and he's given me some informal sort of targets. One way he thinks of this is that if we look at Circle and its free cash multiple, which now is like 130 times EBITDA, on an equivalent basis, Ethereum is closer to 15,000. And that makes sense. I think the layer one, as you know, as you get into layer one, you should apply a higher multiple to like sort of theoretical usage, because it's the same reason software companies get higher multiples than retailers, right? The more you're getting away from the customer and the more it's pure signal, you apply higher multiples to that business. And so I think in the near term, our technical strategist Mark Newton thought we could be seeing 4,000 before the end of the month for Ethereum, but that's not where it peaks. He just thinks that that's the first target. And then I think something, you know, if Sean Farrell's math is correct, you know, then I think 10 to 15,000 actually makes sense too.
So on to my latest investment to try to capitalize on the megatrend that is Ethereum. I, for one, felt I missed out on the MicroStrategy trade, where if we look at 2023, so just going back a couple of years, it's now up 2,800%. So I could have done this through a tax advantaged account like an ISA, because it's just a regular stock. So this was one of my biggest frustrations for this entire market cycle. However, Tom Lee has just proposed to convert BitMine, which as we saw is now the #1 Ethereum holder, and he has said he wants to be the MicroStrategy for Ethereum. So this is the BitMine stock, and if we take a look on the daily, only very, very recently, so BitMine was trading around $4, and this is when Tom Lee announced he's going to be taking over as chairman and wanting to become the Michael Saylor for Ethereum. And then in a matter of days, in just 3 days, initially one day it was up 700%, then over 1,000%, and then it peaked out at 3,800%. And this was in 1, 2, 3 days. Now, since then, it has, obviously, this was massively overhyped. So it came down 60%, 70%. And then it was on the 22nd of July that Cathie Wood of ARK Invest had also invested in BitMine. So this really piqued my interest. So Cathie Wood got in at around $40, and then it was this day here that I decided to invest myself just a couple of days ago, and I got in at pretty much about $31. So pretty pleased that Cathie Wood, an entire team of analysts, they got in at 40, I've got in at 30, converting some of my Coinbase to BitMine. And I'm just thinking, even if we just get back to where it was just about 2 weeks ago, from 31, that is about, well, it's over 400%. And from today's price, where it is right now at around 33, it's still pretty much 400%. So obviously this is not investment advice. I have made investments before on this channel that have certainly not turned out how I'd like. So please do your own research, but that is what's going on with BitMine right now. If you haven't heard, Ethereum has been dominating over the past 3 months. Of the top 100 coins, Ethereum's pretty much been in the top 5, massively outperforming Bitcoin and pretty much everything else. It's dominating in DeFi, dominating in stablecoins, and it's #1 across 5 continents when it comes to developers. Tom Lee of Fundstrat believes Ethereum can get to $15,000 by the end of the year, and this was based on free cash flows. And Tom Lee also became the new chairman of BitMine, and they converted from a Bitcoin treasury company over to the largest Ethereum treasury company. And after seeing Tom wanting to be the MicroStrategy for Ethereum, and also seeing Cathie Wood and the team at ARK Invest jump in, I decided to convert some of my Coinbase to BitMine to try to capitalize on this trend as well. Now, just note, this is not investment advice, as many things that I buy do not turn out as I'd hoped. So please do your own research. So there you are, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Now, do we think Ethereum can get to $15,000 by year end? Let me know below. Also, if you've got any burning questions, then simply use SuperThanks below. However, just remember, to get rid of 100% of the comment spam and trading bots that plague YouTube comments, we are trying out the new SuperThanks Commenting system. So to get your question or comment read and replied to, or just to say thanks, then use SuperThanks below. And for now, just to say, if you did enjoy anything in the video, then drop a like, and a big thank you to everyone who does, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.